A woman on TikTok named Mama Selena showed her January electric bill from Ohio, $1,013 for 1 month of electricity. In Ohio, not a mansion, not a commercial building, a family home. And she said it cut into her grocery budget. And on Reddit, a homeowner in Pittsburgh shared that their electric bill topped $800, and the comment section was full of people saying the same thing. My bill doubled. My bill tripled. I have never seen a number this high, and I need you to understand that those are not outliers. Those are the beginning of a trend that is about to accelerate, for reasons that most Americans do not understand, because the forces driving their electric bill higher are happening simultaneously, and they are compounding on top of each other. The average monthly residential electricity bill in the United States increased from $121 in 2021 to $156 in 2025. That is a nearly 30% rise in 4 years. And from January to October of 2025 alone, electricity bills rose 12.7%, and electric and piped natural gas bills became the two largest drivers of inflation in 2025, rising 7% and 11% respectively. And the National Energy Assistance Directors Association estimated that up to 4 million households experienced utility disconnections in 2025. 4 million families had their power shut off because they could not pay the bill. And that number was nearly 500,000 more than the year before. And the Energy Information Administration forecasts residential rates rising to 17.94 cents per kilowatt hour in 2026, with many states already well above that average. And wholesale electricity prices, which is what your utility company pays before adding their markup and charges, are projected to reach $51 per megawatt hour in 2026, up from $47 in 2025 and $38 in 2024. That is a 34% increase in wholesale power costs in 2 years. And every dollar of that increase flows directly into your monthly bill. And utilities requested a record-high $31 billion in rate hikes in 2025 across the nation, more than twice the amount requested in 2024. Many of those rate increases have not been implemented yet. They are coming. And when they arrive, the bill you received last month will look like a bargain compared to what is about to land in your mailbox this summer. That is what this video is about. Not a vague warning, a documented, sourced, timed explanation of exactly why your electric bill is about to explode and why nobody in power is stopping it. AI data centers are consuming electricity like small cities, and you are the one paying for the wires that connect them. Here is the part of the story that should make every ratepayer in America furious. The tech companies that are building the artificial intelligence systems that they say will transform the world are building data centers that consume as much electricity as small cities. And the cost of connecting those data centers to the electrical grid, the transmission lines, the substation upgrades, the transformer installations, all of it is being paid for by you, not by the tech companies, by you, through your electric bill. The Union of Concerned Scientists found that utilities in 7 PJM states passed billions of dollars in transmission upgrade costs to connect data centers, costs that are spread across all residential customers. The PJM interconnection is the nation's largest grid operator, covering 67 million people across 13 states including Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Jersey, and Virginia, home to what the industry calls Data Center Alley. And the PJM capacity market prices have skyrocketed because of data center demand. PJM announced price increases to try to encourage more power plant development, translating to a year-over-year increase of 1.5 to 5% in some customers' bills just from the capacity charges. And electricity demand in Texas and the surrounding region is projected to grow 9.2% in 2026 alone, 3 times the national rate, driven almost entirely by data centers and cryptocurrency mining. That single region contributes 66% of all U.S. electricity demand growth in 2026. And the Texas market allows prices to spike dramatically during peak demand, which means when the data centers are running full blast during a summer heat wave and every air conditioner in the state is also running, the price per megawatt hour can surge to levels that produce the $800 and $1,000 bills that people are posting on social media. And the PPL Corporation CEO said during his February earnings call that in 5 years the average monthly utility bill for residents in Pennsylvania increased by $68, with $50 of that increase coming from power generation cost spikes driven by natural gas prices, generation shortages, and rising data center demand combined with closures of old coal plants. $50 of a $68 monthly increase came from generation costs, not from your usage going up. Your bill went up $50 a month, not because you used more electricity, but because the system that generates it became more expensive. And the president announced a ratepayer protection pledge for hyperscalers during the State of the Union address, and utility CEOs repeated the word affordability during their February earnings calls, while implementing new rate hikes in the same quarter. Affordability as a talking point, rate hikes as the policy. And the most infuriating dimension of this is that the data centers generating this demand are owned by the most profitable companies in human history. Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta. These companies have combined market capitalizations in the trillions of dollars. They have more cash on hand than most countries, and the infrastructure required to power their AI ambitions is being subsidized by a retired couple in Allentown, Pennsylvania, whose electric bill went up $68 a month, so that a server farm in Virginia can train a language model. That is the transfer of wealth that is happening right now through your electric bill. From households to hyperscalers, from kitchen tables to data centers, and it is accelerating. And here is the dimension that makes this truly obscene. A single large data center can consume 100 megawatts of electricity, enough to power approximately 80,000 homes. And the companies building these facilities have announced plans for hundreds of them across the country in the next 5 years. Microsoft alone announced $80 billion in data center spending. Meta is building a 2-gigawatt facility in Louisiana. Google, Amazon, and Oracle are all racing to build capacity that each company claims is necessary to win the AI race. And the electricity those facilities consume does not appear out of thin air. It comes from the same grid that powers your house. And when a data center that consumes as much power as 80,000 homes connects to the grid needs more generation, more transmission, and more capacity. And the cost of providing all of that gets divided among all the ratepayers in the region, all including the retiree on a fixed income who does not use AI, does not own stock in any tech company, and is watching her electric bill climb by $50 a month so that a corporation worth $3 trillion can train a chatbot. And New Jersey saw average electric bills surge more than 20% in 2025 alone, driven in part by data center growth in the PJM region. The governor of Pennsylvania initially embraced the data center boom in his state but reversed course as pushback from citizens mounted, calling for greater oversight and restrictions after seeing what the bills were doing to working families. And rising electricity costs have already changed election outcomes. In Virginia, New Jersey, and Georgia, utility bills became a decisive political issue. Voters in Georgia booted incumbent utility regulators and elected 2 Democrats to the positions for the first time in 2 decades because they were angry about their bills. That anger is bipartisan. It does not care about party affiliation. It cares about the number at the bottom of the page. Natural gas prices are surging because of the war, and natural gas sets the price of electricity for most of America. Natural gas remains the marginal fuel in most U.S. power markets, which means natural gas effectively sets the price of electricity across most of the country. When natural gas gets more expensive, electricity gets more expensive. It is that direct, and natural gas prices are forecast to rise to an average of $4 per million BTU in 2026, driven by increased LNG exports and the war in Iran disrupting global energy markets. And in Texas, market prices at one major hub are projected to rise 45% in 2026 alone. And the EIA said natural gas prices tend to be the biggest determinant of power prices. And the Strait of Hormuz disruption has sent shockwaves through the global gas market because roughly 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas transited through that waterway before it was functionally closed. And the United States is now the world's largest LNG exporter, which means American natural gas is being sold on world markets at prices that are higher than what the domestic market would support if the gas stayed home. American consumers are competing with European and Asian buyers for the gas that was extracted from American soil, transported through American pipelines, processed at American facilities, and then shipped overseas because the export price is higher. And that competition raises the domestic price, which raises the electricity price, which raises your bill. And the volatility is not going away. The EIA said gas price volatility is expected to persist, driven by global LNG demand, production variability, and ongoing geopolitical risk. A colder than normal winter could simultaneously drive up gas consumption and tighten both gas and electricity markets, pushing both sharply higher. The same dynamic plays out during a hotter than normal summer, which is what the forecasts are calling for in 2026. When every air conditioner in Texas runs at maximum capacity during a heat wave, and the gas-fired power plants that supply 40% of the grid's electricity are burning fuel at $4 per million BTU instead of the $2.50 that was normal, 2 years ago, the wholesale electricity price spikes, and that spike flows through to your bill. Not gradually, not over quarters, within the same billing cycle. And the families who live in states with deregulated energy markets, Texas being the largest, have no protection against these spikes because the deregulated market is designed to let prices float to whatever level the supply-demand balance dictates. When supply is tight and demand is extreme, there is no cap. The price goes to whatever the market will bear. And what the market will bear is whatever the family is willing to pay to keep their air conditioner running when the outside temperature is 110 degrees. And the answer is, they will pay anything, because the alternative is heat stroke. And the utilities know that, and the generators know that, and the price reflects it. And what most Americans do not realize is that the natural gas market was already tightening before the war started. U.S. natural gas production has been running near flat while LNG export capacity expanded, which means more of the gas being produced is leaving the country instead of being consumed domestically. And the war added a demand shock on top of an already tight market because European countries that were weaning themselves off Russian gas after 2020 are now scrambling for every available LNG cargo on the global market. And American producers are happy to sell to the highest bidder regardless of whether that bidder is a European utility or an American one. And the Henry Hub natural gas price, which is the benchmark for U.S. trading, was already elevated before the Strait closed. After the closure, natural gas futures jumped because the market priced in reduced global supply and increased competition for what remained. And the residential electricity consumer is at the end of this chain, absorbing every price increase that occurs at every step. Higher gas prices mean higher generation costs, which mean higher wholesale prices, which mean higher retail rates, which mean higher bills. And there is no step in that chain where the cost is absorbed by anyone other than you. The utility passes through the fuel cost. The regulator approves the pass-through, and you pay the bill. That is the system. And the system is working exactly as designed. It is designed to protect shareholder returns. And it is designed to ensure that the entity with the least power in the chain, which is the residential consumer, bears the full weight of every cost increase that originates anywhere in the system. The grid itself is falling apart, and the cost of fixing it is being loaded onto your monthly bill for the next 20 years. 70% of transmission lines in the United States are over 25 years old and approaching or exceeding the end of their designed life cycle. The grid was built in the 1960s and 1970s for a fundamentally different level of demand and a fundamentally different climate. And the infrastructure that was supposed to last 40 to 60 years is now being asked to carry more power through more extreme weather to more consumers, while simultaneously connecting millions of new demand sources that did not exist when the wires were strung. And the cost of upgrading it is staggering. Utilities plan to spend up to $1.4 trillion on infrastructure from 2025 to 2030. $1.4 trillion on poles, transformers, substations, transmission lines, underground cables, wildfire prevention, hurricane hardening, and smart grid technology, and every dollar of that spending is recovered from ratepayers, from you, through your monthly bill, over 20 to 30-year rate recovery periods that your utility commission approved, because the utility argued correctly that the infrastructure needs replacing or people will die. And the Clean Air Task Force documented that distribution spending increased by 160% and transmission spending nearly tripled between 2003 and 2023. And despite that spending, congestion on the grid remains high, indicating that the planning processes are not yielding effective results for customers. You are paying more and getting a grid that is still congested, still fragile, and still vulnerable to the extreme weather events that are becoming more frequent and more severe. In California, wildfire spending from 2019 to 2024 added approximately 4 cents per kilowatt hour to annual rates according to Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. After the 2018 Camp Fire, PG&E declared bankruptcy, citing $30 billion in estimated liabilities. And those liabilities are being repaid through rate increases that California consumers will be paying for decades. In Florida, hurricane resilience programs involving burying power lines and hardening infrastructure appear on your bill through specific riders and restoration surcharges that arrive after every storm. In Texas, extreme heat stresses the grid every summer, increasing the need for reliability support that adds cost. And the vice president of policy at the Institute for Energy Research said in the 2000s and 2010s because electricity demand was not increasing, utilities could get away with skipping some investments. But now that demand is increasing, you cannot play those games anymore, and some states are in worse shape than others because they underinvested, which means the states that saved money by deferring maintenance and upgrades are now going to have to catch up all at once. and the catch-up cost will be loaded onto bills at the same time that gas prices are elevated. Data center demand is surging, and households are already at their financial limit. The timing could not be worse, and it is not an accident. It is the result of decades of deferred investment, meeting decades of deferred accountability. And the bill for all of it is arriving in your mailbox right now. Power plants are closing faster than they are being replaced, and the gap between what the grid can produce and what it needs to produce is widening. The Department of Energy warned that blackout risk could increase 100 times if the current pace of power plant retirements continues while demand surges. 104 gigawatts of firm generation capacity, coal, natural gas, and nuclear are scheduled for closure in the next 5 years. And the replacements coming online are predominantly wind and solar, which are variable and cannot provide the 24/7 baseload power that the grid requires during peak demand. And the PJM CEO has acknowledged that rolling blackouts may be necessary during extreme heat or cold to protect the grid from cascading failure. And renewables are not expanding fast enough to offset the closures. The interconnection queue, which is the process by which new generation sources get approved and connected to the grid, has become a bottleneck that delays projects for years. Clean Air Task Force documented that the inability to connect new generation to the grid in a timely manner puts upward pressure on costs, adds stress to the system, and forces existing aging and uneconomic plants to stay online longer than they should. And those aging plants are more expensive to operate, more prone to failure, and more likely to produce the kind of unplanned outage that spikes wholesale prices and triggers emergency pricing for the entire region. And the gap between generation capacity and demand is widening in specific regions. ERCOT in Texas is expecting substantial load increases in 2026, much of it from data centers, industrial expansion, and economic growth in urban areas. And the combination of higher baseload, regionally concentrated growth, and long lead times for new generation increases the risk of higher prices and more volatile conditions. And the faculty director of the MIT Climate Policy Center said consumer electricity prices have been growing at a much faster rate than the rate of inflation in the general economy, which is important because the rate of inflation in the general economy has been pretty high. Your electricity bill is rising faster than the cost of everything else. And the cost of everything else is already rising at a pace that has eroded consumer purchasing power for 3 straight years. And the irony is that the energy transition, which was supposed to lower electricity costs over time as renewable generation with zero fuel costs displaced expensive fossil generation, is currently increasing costs because the capital investment required to build the new system, connect it, store it, and integrate it with the existing grid is being spent all at once, while the old system's fuel costs are simultaneously rising because of the war. You are paying for both systems at the same time. The system being built and the system being retired, and neither one is cheap. And the combined cost is what is arriving in your mailbox as a number that makes your stomach drop every single month. And here is a fact that crystallizes the entire problem. The Payless Power Analysis found that increasingly hotter summers have contributed to a 400% increase in utility rates since the mid-1970s. 400%. And the average American household paid approximately $784 for electricity during the summer of 2025, which was 6% higher than 2024. And the summer of 2026 is projected to be hotter than 2025, with higher gas prices, higher wholesale rates, higher capacity charges, and higher infrastructure fees than any previous summer on record. And Utility Dive reported that the EIA forecast specifically noted that the increase in power prices in ERCOT in 2026 reflects large hourly spikes in the summer months due to high demand combined with relatively low supply. Large hourly spikes, that is the technical term for what happens when every air conditioner in Texas runs simultaneously on a day when the grid does not have enough generation to meet demand. The price per megawatt hour does not increase by 10%. It increases by 500 or 1,000%. For a few hours, and those few hours produce the bills that people post on social media in disbelief. The $800 bill, the $1,000 bill, the bill that is larger than the mortgage payment. And the residents of those states have no protection against it, because they chose, or their legislators chose, to deregulate the market and let the price float to whatever level the market dictates. And the market dictates that when you are about to die of heat stroke, you will pay anything to prevent it. And the generators know that, and the price reflects it. And the bill arrives 30 days later. And by then, it is too late to do anything about it except pay, or get disconnected, or become one of the 4 million households that lost power in 2025 because they could not afford the price of staying alive. Low-income and fixed-income Americans are being crushed, and the people who can least afford it are paying the highest percentage of their income. Everything I have described hits low-income and fixed-income Americans hardest because electricity is not optional. You cannot choose not to heat your home in January. You cannot choose not to cool your home in July if you are elderly or have young children or have a medical condition that is exacerbated by heat. You cannot choose not to run the refrigerator that keeps your food from spoiling. You cannot choose not to charge the phone that is your only connection to employment, healthcare, and emergency services. Electricity is a survival necessity that has the pricing structure of a luxury product. And low-income families already spend more than 15% of their income on energy. A 4.2% rate increase forces difficult choices between paying the electric bill and covering food, medication, rent, or transportation. And the 4 million households that experienced utility disconnection in 2025 were overwhelmingly low-income, elderly, and families with young children. Disconnection does not just mean discomfort. In summer heat, it means hyperthermia. In winter cold, it means hypothermia. In both cases, it means emergency room visits and, in some cases, death. And the NEDA estimates that the average U.S. household will spend nearly $1,000 this winter to heat its home. For a household earning $30,000 a year, that is 3.3% of gross income on heating alone in a single season. Combined with summer cooling costs and year-round baseline usage, total annual electricity spending for that household approaches $2,500 to $3,000, which is 8 to 10% of their gross income on a single utility. And the rate hikes coming in 2026 will push that percentage higher. And the war-driven natural gas price increase will push it higher still. And the data center demand surge will push it higher on top of that. And the $1.4 trillion in grid infrastructure investment will push it higher for the next 2 decades. And the people being hit hardest have the fewest options to respond. They cannot install rooftop solar because they rent, not own. They cannot switch to a cheaper provider because they live in a regulated market with one utility. They cannot reduce their usage below survival levels because they need heat in winter and cooling in summer and refrigeration year-round. They are trapped. And the system that traps them is the same system that is transferring billions of dollars in grid upgrade costs from data center companies to residential ratepayers. The most vulnerable Americans are subsidizing the infrastructure that powers the most profitable companies in human history, and Newsweek reported that higher energy bills have become a political flashpoint. In Virginia, New Jersey, and Georgia, utility costs helped change the outcome of elections. Energy Secretary Chris Wright acknowledged the GOP will get blamed at the polls for rising prices. Democrats are running ads hitting Republicans over utility bills, but neither party has a plan to fundamentally change the structure that produces the bills. They have plans to blame each other. They do not have plans to fix the system, and the system is what is broken. What is coming this summer, and what you can do right now before the bills arrive. I want to be very direct with you about what is coming this summer, because I think you deserve to know the timeline. Between June and September 2026, the following will happen simultaneously. Natural gas prices will remain elevated because of the war and increased LNG exports. Electricity demand will surge as air conditioning usage peaks during what forecasters are calling a hotter-than-normal summer. The ERCOT grid in Texas will face its annual stress test, with the potential for rolling blackouts during extreme heat events when demand exceeds available supply. Data center demand will continue growing at its current trajectory, consuming grid capacity that was previously available for residential use. Rate increases that were approved in 2025 and early 2026, but not yet implemented, will begin appearing on bills. And the families that are already at their limit will receive electric bills in July and August that are 20 to 40% higher than the same months last year. And the bills will not come down in the fall because the base rate increases are permanent. The infrastructure charges are long-term, and the gas prices are structurally elevated. The summer spike will not be temporary. It will be the new baseline from which the next increase begins. So here is what you can do right now while you still have time before the summer bills arrive. First, audit your usage. Call your utility and ask for a breakdown of your bill by component. Understand what you are paying for: generation, for transmission, for distribution, for fuel surcharges, and for riders and fees. Most people have never read the itemized charges on their bill. When you do, you will understand where your money is going and which charges you can influence and which you cannot. Second, shift your usage to off-peak hours wherever possible. Running your dishwasher, washing machine, and dryer at night or early morning instead of during peak hours can reduce your bill in markets with time-of-use pricing. Third, eliminate phantom loads. The devices in your house that are plugged in but not in use: chargers, Entertainment systems, computers in sleep mode, are consuming electricity 24 hours a day. The Department of Energy estimates that phantom loads account for 5 to 10% of residential electricity use. Fourth, if you own your home and have the financial means, invest in a programmable thermostat that adjusts temperature based on your schedule and in LED lighting if you have not already done so. Fifth, and this is the one that I believe is the most important for the viewers of this channel, contact your state public utility commission. They are the body that approves or denies rate increase requests from your utility. They hold public hearings, they accept public comments, and they are elected or appointed officials who respond to constituent pressure. The rate increases that are coming to your bill were approved by someone, and that someone answers to you. Use that leverage. Show up, testify, write, call, because the utility companies are spending millions of dollars on lobbyists and lawyers to make the case for higher rates, and the only counterweight is you, and if you do not show up, they win by default. Here is the truth that I want to leave you with, and it is the truth that makes this video different from every other electricity video on YouTube. Your electric bill is not just an energy issue, it is a democracy issue. The decisions that determine how much you pay for electricity are made in regulatory hearings that most Americans do not know exist, by commissioners that most Americans cannot name, based on testimony from utility executives and industry lobbyists who are professionally trained to make the case for higher rates. And the consumers who pay those rates are almost never in the room when the decisions are made. That imbalance between the resources the utilities bring to the table and the resources the ratepayer brings is the fundamental reason why your bill keeps going up. Not because electricity has to be this expensive, but because the people who profit from it being expensive have more influence over the process than the people who pay for it, and that can change. But only if you participate, only if you show up, only if you treat your electric bill not as an inevitable expense but as a number that was decided by someone who is supposed to represent your interest and who needs to hear from you before the next rate case is decided. And I want to make one final point about the political dimension of this crisis. The president campaigned on pledges to sharply cut energy costs. Axios reported that the nationwide average retail residential price for electricity is about 7% higher than this time last year and 32% higher than 5 years ago. The promise was lower bills, the reality is higher bills, and the forces driving them higher, the war, the data center boom, the gas export market, the grid spending, the deregulated markets, none are being addressed by any implemented or proposed policy from either party. Both parties are running ads about your electric bill. Neither party is changing the structural dynamics that produce it. Until they do, the bill keeps climbing. And that gap between what Americans are promised and what Americans are charged is the space where trust dies. Do not let that happen. Show up, fight for your bill, because nobody else will. Share this video with every person you know who pays an electric bill, which is everyone, because the summer is coming, the rates are coming, the data center charges are coming, the grid infrastructure costs are coming, the gas price surge is coming, and the only question is whether you are going to be informed about why your bill is what it is, or whether you are going to open that envelope in July and feel the same helpless shock that 4 million Americans felt in 2025 when they could not pay and the power was shut off. Be informed, be prepared, be present. Subscribe and turn on notifications because I am going to be tracking electricity prices, rate cases, grid conditions, and summer demand forecasts in real time. No spin, no affiliation, no sponsorship from any utility or energy company. Just the data and what it means for your family's budget. Take care of yourselves out there. Keep the lights on. Keep the bills manageable.